I talk a lot about the benefits of space, the power of being rather than doing. And yet it's so much easier said than done. The impacts are huge. And yet, what we see and what's common, particularly when I'm talking to leaders that I work alongside, there's a fear about stopping, about doing nothing, and sometimes a guilt as well. And here's why. Because we think by stopping and being still and tapping into space, we are doing nothing. And yet, it's probably the most useful thing from a value and impact perspective that we can do. So I think it's not that we don't have time for this, it's the way that we view it. So let me explain. We talk a lot about the benefits of slowing down to speed up, how taking space and a break gives us the opportunity to recharge and therefore come back better. So we become more effective. Things don't take as long when we are at our best. So slowing down to make sure we're at our best enables us to speed up because we're more effective. And you'll have heard me use the analogy about the car and the fuel station. When the car's fuel light comes on, even when we're running late, we always stop at the fuel station because we know that gets the car to its destination. And we're the same, or we should be. And yet it's so much harder to apply that rule to ourselves. But here's the thing, right? As a leader, if you are not tapping into the space, the time away from the desk, the time to just be, there's a massive part of your role that you're not doing. And I'd argue it's probably the most influential and impactful part of your role. So, time away, space, it isn't time away from work, it is the work. The space is the work. As a leader, our role is to think, to create a vision for the future, to plan for the future, to think strategically, to innovate, to create. None of this we can do when we're in back to back meetings, drowning in an inbox that's overflowing, or stuck writing reports. We need the space to tap into this part of our brain. And it's what I often term this quantity quality difference. We have been taught, particularly in our workplaces, that it is always quantity focus. The more we do, the better, which is why we're all so busy. It's why our schedules are all overflowing and we have no space. But space is the doorway to the quality approach. So it's a quality approach that focuses on the value and impact of the work that we do, not the quantity approach, focuses on the amount of hours we do. That's an outdated model that came about around about the Industrial Revolution when we paid people by the hours to work in factories and we were producing product. That doesn't work for people. It doesn't work for our human mind and our human brain either. And it doesn't work for leadership. So, how do you operate on your quality model rather than your quantity model? You could work 10 hours today and yet not achieve as much as the 3 hours you do if it's the quality model, not the quantity one. It's value and impact over hours worked. And this is something that Dan Sullivan talked about in his book, 10x is better than 2x. And he talks about the difference between chronos time, so our chronological clock, how we measure time. So, the human creation of time, and kairos time, so very deep time. And this is not just this is something that comes up in many of our indigenous cultures as well. This concept of deep time, of taking space, of being away, of disconnecting. And I think it's so important, particularly for us as leaders. So, how do you make space for this deep time, for this opportunity to think strategically, to plan for the future, to reflect, to work on your own self mastery, but also tap into that creativity center in your brain that will help you innovate and solve problems as well? This requires space. Space is not time away from work. Space is the work. And it's probably the most important thing we'll do from a quality, value, and impact perspective in our roles all week. So, where is the opportunity for you? And how do we reduce some of this fear and this guilt when we create space in our schedule? Because remember, it's not time away from work, it is the work, it's the value and impact that we're investing in when we have that space. So, where's that space for you? And how do you help it tap into peak performance?